Hi, my name is James Covey. I'm a counselor with SIL, and we're here today to talk about suicidality and how to talk to teens when one of their friends has been struggling, has either self-harmed, had a suicide attempt, or died by suicide. I think a lot of times we shift more towards really focusing on that individual and their experience, and we guess what do we think was going on, what happened, who could have done something more, how did they do it? And to just encourage you when you're talking to especially middle school in ninth and 10th grade, for the focus not to be on what happened and how it happened. You could say so and so was really struggling, they felt hopeless, and they did something that was really dangerous to their body. So we're really talking about a form of self-harm. They don't need to know the details. They don't need to know um, that he or she almost died and didn't, but to say they were really struggling and they just didn't know what to do. And I would then shift it to the teens and their experience. So if you're a teacher or a parent or a youth leader, to be able to say, "Hey, what was this? What is this like for you? What do you do when you feel overwhelmed?" So if the conversation is drifting to try to guess what that person was experiencing, that's their story. So we're not going to try to tell their story for them. Instead, it's good to shift the focus onto the team that you're meeting with or working with or leading a small group with and say, what do you guys do if you feel hopeless or overwhelmed? Who can you go to talk to? What are resources you have? Particularly if you're in a one-on-one, you could say, have you ever tried to hurt yourself or have you felt so overwhelmed that you wanted to do something harmful? That's an okay thing to ask. Particularly in a group setting, I would shift it more towards the individual experience of what would you do if you felt overwhelmed? A lot of teens, and I think even adults, don't necessarily have the resources to really process what it's like for this person to be so overwhelmed. And I think sometimes in culture and in social media, suicidality gets kind of glorified and elevated. I think about the TV show 13 Reasons Why that was probably 7 or 8 years ago, but was really, really significant in a lot of people watching it. So I would shift away from the result and more on the experience and asking them, what do you do if you're really sad? Who do you go to? What makes you feel better? Looking at helpful things to meet an emotional need that's not being met. Suicide is such a long-term solution to a short-term problem. So to be able to say, when you're having a week where you feel really down, what can you do? Who can you go to talk to especially the older teens? So that's your, 15, 16, 17, 18 year olds about what do you do if somebody comes to you with something? I think teens tend to make promises and you got to promise never to tell somebody this. If I tell you, if so and so doesn't change by this date, I'm going to do something. And teens sometimes will be like, well, you don't. If you do something, I'll do something. So to help equip, especially our older teens, with what to do if somebody tells you something. Wow, I'm so glad you told me. And let's think about what adults we can tell so that you're safe. It could be overwhelming to hear that somebody is thinking of ending their life. So, particularly for those older teens, after something has happened, to feel like they're equipped to know what to do. I think both adults and our especially older teens can feel guilty. I wish I would have done more. I said something mean one time. Maybe it's my fault. So, to create a safe place, if you're in a classroom or in a youth group where you say, this isn't your fault, this person's really struggling. What can you do if you're struggling? So it's shifting from the result of what happened and more onto the experience of like, what do we do when we're struggling? How can we create a place that's safe enough to reach out and get help? So I know that's a lot. It's really tough when you're in this situation. So I'm thinking about those of you who are watching this because you're walking this difficult journey. It's always better to talk to your kids about emotions and about what to do when they're struggling and to have really good resources available within the family home of where to go and who to talk to and what to do. So I want to encourage you in that. Thanks.